The wind howled like a demon straight out of hell that night in 1888, whipping the Montana snow into a frenzy that blinded a man at 10 paces. I'd just finished bedding down the horses in the barn, my hands numb from the cold, even through my thick gloves. When I heard a muffled grunt, followed by the scrape of boots on frozen hay, my gut twisted. This wasn't some coyote sniffing around for scraps. No, this was trouble, the kind that carried knives and bad intentions. I froze in the doorway, the lantern in my hand casting jittery shadows across the stalls. There, in the far corner, 3 shadowy figures loomed over something or someone huddled on the ground. One of them, a burly bastard with a scarred face glinting under the light, raised a boot to stomp down hard. A flash of steel caught my eye. The figure on the ground slashed out with a knife, drawing a curse from the attacker as blood sprayed. Damn savage bitch. The scarred one snarled, clutching his arm. My heart slammed against my ribs like a trapped animal. I didn't think I reacted. My hand dropped to the Colt Peacemaker at my hip, the metal icy against my palm. "Get off my land," I bellowed, my voice cutting through the storm like a whip crack. The 3 whirled, their eyes widening in the dim light. The closest one, a wiry fellow with a mustache like a rat's tail, went for his gun. I beat him to it. The shot exploded in the confined space, the bullet tearing into his shoulder. He yelped, staggering back into a stall, spooking the horses into a frenzy of whinnies and stamps. The other 2 didn't wait for invitations. They bolted for the side door, one firing wildly over his shoulder, the slug splintering wood inches from my head. I ducked, firing again, but the blizzard swallowed them whole, their curses fading into the gale. Smoke curled from my barrel as I lowered the gun, my breath coming in ragged plumes. The barn reeked of gunpowder and blood. And there, in the hay, lay the cause of it all, a woman, patchy by the look of her beaded moccasins and the defiant tilt of her chin, even as she clutched her side where a deep gash wept red. Her raven hair was matted with snow and blood, her mid-20s frame lean and battered. But those eyes dark as midnight, and burning with a fire that could scorch the soul locked onto mine without a hint of surrender. She was no boy, no runaway kid. This was a warrior in skirts, her knife still gripped in a trembling hand, ready to gut me if I stepped wrong. Her ankle twisted at an ugly angle, frostbite nipping at her exposed skin, turning it mottled blue. She'd been running hard, that much was clear. And these men, these dogs, had caught up to her in my barn. I should have walked away. Hell, I should have dragged her out into the snow and let nature take its course. That's what a smart man would have done, especially one like me, Jacob Harlan, who'd learned the hard way that letting folks in only led to more graves to dig. But as I stood there, the wind screaming through the cracks, something stirred in the frozen pit of my chest, a flicker of the man I'd been before the fever stole. Emily and little Clara from me 6 years back. Emily's laugh echoed in my mind, soft and warm like summer grass, and Clara's tiny hand clutching mine as her chest rattled with that final heartbreaking cough. I'd buried them under the big pine out back, the ground so hard I'd blistered my hand swinging the pickaxe. Since then, I'd walled myself up on this remote spread in the Bitterroot Mountains' shadow, frostbitten exile where memories festered like gangrene. At 43, I looked 60, grizzled beard, streaked silver. Hair cropped short from my old cavalry days. Face carved deeper by sorrow than by the relentless sun and wind. My days were a grind of ritual. Rise before dawn. Brew black coffee strong enough to strip paint. Tend the livestock. Chop wood till my arms burned. Anything to barricade against the ghosts. But now, this woman Kira, I'd learned ladder lay there, her blood staining my hay, forcing me to choose. "You ain't dying on my watch," I muttered, my voice rough from disuse. I holstered the Colt and knelt, careful not to crowd her. She tensed, knife raised, but I ignored it, ripping strips from an old saddle blanket to bind her wounds. The gash on her side was ugly, deep from a blade fight, and her ankle swelled like a rotten apple. Frostbite clawed at her toes. She'd lose him if we didn't act fast. She watched me the whole time, silent as a hawk, her breath shallow and pained. "No, please, no tears. just that unyielding gaze, like she was measuring if I was savior or executioner. I dragged her deeper into the barn, away from the draft, and draped my own coat over her shivering form. Bounty hunters on her trail? Hell, probably. But turning her out meant signing her death warrant. And damn if that didn't echo too close to the helplessness I'd felt watching Emily fade as I barred. The barn door against the storm, my mind raced. Who were those men? What had she done to earn their wrath? And why here on my land, where solitude was my only ally? The questions gnawed at me like the cold. But beneath them simmered something dangerous. Curiosity, mixed with a pull I hadn't felt in years. A woman's presence, fierce and unbroken, cracking the ice around my heart. Come dawn, the blizzard had eased to a spiteful flurry, the world outside a blinding white shroud. I'd barely slept, the Winchester across my lap in the cabin, ears straining for any sign of those bastards returning. My spread was remote, miles from the nearest neighbor, old Tom Whitaker. A grizzled trapper who'd swing by once a month with supplies and tall tales, but isolation cut both ways. It kept folks out, but it also meant no help if trouble doubled back. I stoked the fire in the cabin, the flames licking at the logs like hungry tongues, then ladled steaming venison broth into a tin mug. The scent filled the small space, chasing away the musty chill. Grabbing a lantern, I trudged back to the barn, boots crunching snow that squeaked like tortured souls. She was awake. Propped against a hay bale, her knife tucked but ready. Pain etched lines around her eyes, but her posture was unbowed, straight as an arrow. Spirit forged in desert fires, now battling northern ice. "Brought you something hot," I said gruffly, setting the mug down a safe distance away. "Name's Jacob Harlan. This here's my land." She eyed the broth, then me, her silence a wall. But after a long beat, she reached for it, sipping slow, the steam curling around her face. "Kira," she whispered, her voice husky, laced with an accent that spoke of sun-baked canyons far south. Kira. The name settled in my chest like a stone in still water, rippling out. I nodded, not pushing for more. "Rest easy. Ain't nobody comin' for you here? A lie? Maybe?" But in that moment, with the cold pressing in, it felt like truth. The day dragged on and the ranch grind, feeding the horses. Mending a fence the wind had battered, scanning the horizons for tracks. My mind raced with Kira's presence, her fierce eyes haunting me, stirring memories I'd buried deep. Emily had that same fire once, before the fever dulled it. Claire's giggles echoed in the quiet, a ghost's taunt. Why her? Why now? The questions built tension. Push-pull in my gut, fear of entanglement warring with a budding protectiveness that scared me spitless by midday. Worry gnawed harder. I checked the barn. She was gone. Panic hit like a gut punch. Had she bolted? With that ankle, she'd freeze solid before sunset. I followed her blood trail in Avon prints, dragging through the snow, heart pounding as it led to the frozen stream edging my property. There she was, limping to the water's edge, stripping off her tattered clothes in the biting air. Her body, lean and scarred from hardships I could only guess, moved with pained determination. She knelt, splashing the icy water over her wounds, a raw act of reclaiming herself from the filth of pursuit. It wasn't vulnerability. It was defiance, pure and unyielding. Washing away the blood and fear like a baptism in hell's own river, I stopped dead, hidden by the pines, my breath catching. Struck by her unbreakable pride, I felt a profound respect bloom mixed with something warmer. A pull toward this stranger who'd crashed into my world. I averted my eyes, retreating quiet as a shadow. Honoring her solitude with a silent vow, I'd protect that fire, come what may. That dusk. As I stirred elk stew over the hearth, the cabin's single room glowing with firelight, the door creaked open. Kira hobbled in, blanket-trapped, her eyes daring me to send her packing. Snow dusted her hair like stars in the night sky. I stepped aside, the fire's glow, welcoming her in. Chasing the chill from her bones, we shared the stew at my scarred oak table, no words needed. The crackling hearth bridged our worlds, the silence companionable for the first time in years. Her presence filled the empty spaces Emily and Clara had left, not replacing them, but softening the edges of my grief. Later, I unearthed Emily's wool dress and shawl from the trunk at the bed's foot, the one I hadn't opened since the burial. The fabric still carried a faint whiff of lavender, thickening my throat with unshed tears. "They'll keep the chill off," I said gruff, handing them over. Kira took them, her fingers brushing me in a spark that jolted through me. Awakening feelings I'd thought dead and buried. She claimed the fireside floor that night, curling under the blanket, and for me, the cabin's oppressive quiet softened into a hush. Days blended into a fragile alliance. Chores shared like unspoken pacts, her stacking wood despite the limp. Me teaching her the lay of the land. Each glance, each brush of hands, built a bridge over our mutual scars, pulling me from isolation's grip toward something terrifying. Hope. But the shadows of those ambushers lingered, dark promise on the horizon. Old Tom Whitaker rode by one afternoon, his mule laden with furs, his weathered face splitting into a grin. "Jacob, you look like you've seen a ghost or maybe found one," he chuckled, eyeing the barn with curiosity. I brushed him off, but his words stuck. Had I found a ghost or a second chance? As Kira's strength returned, so did the push-pull in my soul. Her laugh, one evening soft, unexpected, over a spilled bucket echoed Emily's, twisting my heart. Was this betrayal or healing? The questions mounted, T. Moore gnawing as I watched her mend a shirt by firelight, her dark eyes reflecting flames that mirrored the one kindling in me.